What's up, everybody? Well, today I am here to bring to you another vacuum that's in my vacuum collection. This time it is of another vacuum that you're probably not so used to seeing on this channel. What I have for you guys today is another Oreck, only this time it's a much vastly different Oreck than the last two that I've featured on the channel. Or actually three, I should say. I did one on an XL21 that I used to have but no longer do. What I have for your viewing pleasure today is this Oreck XL100C. Now, this was back in the days of the mid to late 80s, because I do believe that's how old this old 100C was made. Because I know the 9000 series was more popular in like the early to mid 90s, maybe the late 90s as well. But this was way back when in the 80s. So this is a quite a vintage machine, mostly due to its age. But also the fact that this is old enough to have a different logo on the outer bag instead of the traditional diagonal Oreck lettering that you're so used to seeing on these. And also the fact that the outer bag is made of vinyl instead of cloth, which was a thing for a lot of other vacuums at the time. They used vinyl outer bags instead of cloth outer bags because filtration wasn't a thing back then. So I ended up buying this on eBay after always wanting to know what it's like to live with a vintage Oreck. At least the ones that are pre-2000s. And so far, I have been thoroughly impressed with this cleaner. Before I started getting into Orecks in general, I initially didn't like them, because they were just so small and the motors are very tiny and they just looked and felt not very powerful to me. Until my first Oreck that I got, an original Oreck before the XL21 series came out, which at the time I did have an XL Platinum, which was essentially an XL21, which was the updated version of these classics. My first classic, if anyone remembers, was an XL2 Ultra. It was all black. It had a different headlight design compared to this, and it had a 4 amp motor. And when I first used that, my thought process of these Orecks greatly changed. They are honestly more powerful than people make them out to be. Of course, that doesn't mean they are the best. They are probably the most average vacuums you can get. Yes, they do perform good for what they are, and definitely they perform better than most Dysons do at the time. But the fact that this still has great part support, unlike the predecessor, the XL4000, you could still get like brush rolls, bags, belts, even motors for these things, which is just amazing. So I will go ahead and give a walkthrough of the machine now that you know my history of Orecks and now that how my opinions have changed about them over the years. This does have the basic straight handle design, which was long before Oreck introduced the helping hand handle, which, according to David Oreck, was initially designed by an orthopedic surgeon to have it more comfortable for people with arthritis, which eventually that has given an award for in the Arthritis Foundation. But this was long before that happened, and they just had the straight handle, which honestly I like a bit better than the helping hand handle. Of course, I don't have arthritis, so I can't speak otherwise for those who do. But I just feel like you're using more of a traditional vacuum with this style of handle with its curvature. And it's also pretty soft because it's got the rubber grip on the top. One thing I really do like about this is the rubber grip does not slide off because there's this big plastic piece that was punched in to prevent it from doing otherwise. So I really like that. You also do have a surprisingly long cord. I think this has to be at least 30 feet. So even for being a much older machine, that definitely looks a lot more basic. As you can see, it has the foot pedal on-off switch long before Oreck would introduce the, once again, the helping hand handle, which would later have a handle-mounted power switch. These older Orecks had a foot pedal on-off switch right on the right side of the base. And getting back to the cord, because this was made in a time before they refined these style of Orecks, they did not have rotating cord hooks on either side. And now let's get back to the front on the outer bag. As you can see, it is this very nice vinyl outer bag that is still in pretty good shape. It doesn't have any tears or marks in it anywhere, at least not ones that I've seen. So let's go ahead and open it up and check the inner bag. So here is the generic HEPA CC bag that I'm running in this, which you can get the genuine bags for it, but I got quite a good deal for these CC bags. But the only modification I did have to do to it in order to get it to fit in this was I had to cut off the top part of the tab. So it unfortunately does not have the ability to have the CC docking system because the outer bag is not tall enough. So that's an unfortunate thing, but not a major deal. These outer bags, or these inner bags, definitely are built pretty good. They do have a little rubber collar on the inside for a good seal. And yeah, these older HEPA, these newer style HEPA bags will fit the older XL cleaners as long as you trim the top off. But if you have an outer bag that's tall enough, maybe you won't have to do that. And also, if you have a taller outer bag, you could probably convert to the CC docking system. So you can have a self-sealing bag that they would later introduce. But this was long back before Oreck even thought that out, until I think the late 90s to early 2000s. Here is the front logo on the outer bag. Much different than a lot of the older Orecks that you're used to seeing. It's got lettering that goes across instead of diagonal like the others. So as you can see, there's your label right there, the Oreck XL100C, extended life. That's what XL stands for. And because this is a different time, it doesn't have the labeling on the bottom bag piece. And one thing that intrigues me about this before Oreck refined the series, yeah, that's the only problem I have with this. The handle spring is so worn out that the vacuum doesn't stand upright on its own, and it can fall back pretty easily. Minor inconvenience, but not a major deal. But getting back to the point I was making about the bottom bag clip, this is actually held on with 2 factory screws instead of those plastic clips that they would later do for the cloth outer bags. So that was kind of nice. It honestly is a little bit more sturdy than the plastic clips, although they kind of made those a little bit better of a design, because eventually when these wear out, you will lose the grip on the outer bag. So yeah, maybe this was good by design. It feels more better than the plastic clips because those have a tendency to break over the years. So down here up front, you have your older style rectangular headlight, which some people like. I'm kind of in the middle. I prefer more the XL2s that have that rounded off style headlight because it stylistically looks a little bit better than these rectangular ones. And one thing I really do like about these older Orecks, I really like this like teal blue, almost stone gray color. Especially the XL9100 that was the successor to this. This just has a very nice color. The only thing I did have to do to this was I did have to replace the headlights, but those are just so easy to replace. So now let's go ahead and show you the underside of this. You have, interestingly enough, 2 rear wheels. Do not know why Oreck did this. But also another thing, this is long before Oreck introduced front wheels on these for use on bare floors. So back then, you couldn't use these on bare floors. They weren't very effective. They would scratch your floor because they don't have the front wheels. And it does have side brushes here along the side for edge cleaning that really don't do much. They're just honestly there for show. And I also did put a new brush roll in it. This is the Cleveland Wood Products replacement brush roll. It is a wooden brush roll, per Oreck standards. And the bristles are pretty soft, but very, very dense. Which I honestly think these dense bristles is what gives this thing its great cleaning performance. Yeah, it may feel like it doesn't do anything because the bristles are soft compared to others. But another thing that also gives a good cleaning performance is the fact that the brushes form a chevron pattern into that center suction path right there in the center that funnels all the dirt straight into that. So it definitely does pretty good as far as like topical dirt pickup, especially pet hair because of how dense the bristles are. These definitely do great on that. And yeah, we got a little piece of carpet fuzz that got stuck in there. I'm probably gonna have to eventually find time to pick that out later, but honestly, a lot of people may have badmouthed these Orecks for not being very powerful. And yeah, I do agree they initially don't feel very powerful, but this thing surprisingly has better carpet cleaning performance than I saw. Because when I first ran this over, this picked up surprisingly much more than I thought it would. So, because these Oreck XL motors are not very big. And the motor in this only draws about 2.8 amps. So yeah, that is very tiny. The later versions would eventually go to a 3.2 amp and later a 4 amp, which was the highest one you could get in these. But there is the model number for anyone who is interested. If I can get it out of the light of the ceiling fan. By Oreck Corporation, back when they made them in New Orleans, Louisiana. The model number is XL100C. If anyone could serial date these older Orecks, please let me know. I want to say this was made in either, possibly in 1988. I don't really buy that it's 83. This thing looks a little bit too new to be 88. Or, excuse me, 83. This may be 88, but chime in, please let me know. So 120 volts, 60 hertz, 2.8 amps. And warning, electric shock could occur if used outdoors or on wet surfaces, which I do not know why anyone would try to do that. But anyway, I think I've pretty much shown you everything I can on this vacuum, so let's get to the part you guys have been wanting to see. And if you've stuck around this long and haven't skipped to that part of the video, then then good for you. But now let's go ahead and release the cord and plug this guy in. And now we'll go ahead and turn this thing on and give you a demo of it running. Now, because this is direct air, this thing is not very quiet when it's running. But one thing I do like about it, because it has a lower amperage motor compared to the 4 amp counterparts in later years, this doesn't run as loud compared to them. But it is still pretty loud to begin with. So at your own discretion, for anyone with headphones or who have sensitive hearing, I would advise turning down your volume for this part. But anyway, here we go. thing runs very nice and smooth. Definitely is a lot more tolerable as far as noise goes compared to the later 4-amp versions. But that could be probably because the motor is a totally different design with a metal fan. Yes, you heard me right, metal fan. Which pretty much looks identical to the 5-blade fans that they would use in the later 4-amps, but those would be plastic instead of metal. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video on the Oreck XL100C. Be sure and stay tuned, and don't forget to like, rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.